Hello, regular viewer, loyal subscriber. Welcome back to Brackley Town Football Manager 2022. Today we are going to just recap where we've got to. It's still 9 o'clock Monday morning, 5th of July 2021, and we have just a moment ago seen Hope Powell take the Brackley hot seat. We've gone through our management responsibilities. We've had a look at the backroom staff. We've assessed the team briefly using average stats across defending, midfield and forwards. I just wanted to catch you up on where I got to. I spent a bit longer having a look at the backroom staff and made a few more job offers. I haven't advanced time yet, so they've gone in. If we click on transfers here, you can see the list of people we have sent offers to, the role that we have sought to recruit them into, and the per week wage that we have offered them. You can see everybody here is asking for 180 per week, which is reasonable, apart from the assistant manager, who has a more important role perhaps. £300 for him, just over, which is less than our current assistant manager is taking. So by doing that, we've freed up a little bit of money. But the rest of this money is coming out of our wage budget. So we're actually restricting our ability to recruit playing staff by hiring people in the back room. But I think, certainly boosting our scouting capability, giving ourselves some additional coaching capability, and of course a medical person just in case of staff injury should help out with our operations at the club. So I just wanted to bring you up to speed there. But as promised last time, we have conducted an assessment of the squad using the analyst report and comparison to look at our average capability across various stats in various blocks. If we check our assistant report, we will actually see that that strength weakness report is reflected here. So if you remember last time, just through our own assessment of looking at the stats compared to the average within the within this division, we noted that acceleration and pace were two standout capabilities of the team as it currently stands, that we would want to exploit. So those are strengths, those are things that our team is capable of that others might not be. And here we see our assistant has given us a report and has also noted that acceleration and pace is a team strength that we can build on. So this analysis, this type of analysis, strength, weakness, and then later on opportunity, threat, is called a Swot analysis. It's very common in business when doing an assessment, particularly to do with sales of products against a competition. This is a competitive field, and if you like, our football players and the style of football that they play are our products that we are building. Where we have a strength and an opponent has a weakness, that is an opportunity for us to get one over on them. Where we have a weakness, where an opponent has a strength, that is a threat. So that is something that we need to have a plan to deal with or cater for within our tactics. So you can, if you like, avoid going to the comparison, the analyst comparison, and instead just ask your assistant to jot down what they think are our good points and bad points. They go into much more depth than that average stats here. So they note, of course, that we've got some good goalkeepers, our pace and acceleration, but they also go into some of the player dynamics. So we have two players that have formed a good partnership, and that might be worth looking at when we're building a tactic, whether that's a starting point to put those two players together and then build around them. It might be that we have a number of good options in a particular position on the pitch, and something about the quality of our sort of star team players. Then there are sort of some nice points which aren't necessarily the nice dark green here. The light green are good things, nice things to note, but perhaps not as strong. Our weakness list is, of course, vast, and probably touches on some of the things that we thought about, like there's a lack of good free kick takers. We already noted that within the stats. Low levels of aggression and commitment. We've already noted that we have, as a team, Brackley Town are a lightweight technical team that perhaps are not best suited for shoulder to shoulder, pushing and shoving, hard tackling kind of behaviour on the pitch. We're going to look to be more technical and passing and movement, and keeping out of the way of handbags and fisticuffs if we can. Some things about, we've thought about our lack of jumping, leadership we already spotted, so this is just going through some of those bits and pieces as well. It's noted that we don't really have any youth prospects. That being said, we don't have any good training facilities, so even if we did acquire a fantastic youth prospect, there's no guarantee we'll be able to, with our part-time contract structure and facilities, develop them sufficiently to be able to create value there, so that might not be something to focus on immediately. An interesting point here is that there's a minor weakness in terms of our crossing ability. If we've got speed and pace to make use of them, we might want to think about, instead of running down the flanks, actually bending our runs in towards the goal, acknowledging the fact that we're not very good at long shots, and going through the middle, which is usually congested with competitive players, that we might have to have a think about how we handle that. Concentration, yeah, we've got no transfer money, but there's plenty of players that are without jobs at the moment. So I think this is a reasonable way of having a look. We can also ask our assistant to say what's our best 11. Hang on. No tactic selected. Okay, so before the assistant can tell us how our players fit into a tactic, we have to come up with a tactic first. There is this additional squad assessment device in here, which is the squad depth screen. And if I have a look at all positions in here, Football Manager describes a pitch positions in terms of a 5x6 grid, 5x6. Anyway, these are positions within a football formation. So these are the locations where a particular player will take up when they don't have the ball as a team. So this is the way that the team should line up under defence conditions. You have a defensive line at the back, protecting a goalkeeper who's protecting the goal. You have a defensive midfield, and attacking midfield, which is where a large amount of the play takes place. And as you might consider, defensive midfield are there to support the defence and link it to the midfield. Midfield is there to win the ball from the opposition and turn defence into attack. The attacking midfield players support people who are right at the front, strikers in this case, whose job it is to bang the ball into the goal. It's not quite as rigid as perhaps netball might be, where only the goal shooter can score goals. Goals can come from, of course, strikers will be the dominant source of the goals, but goals can also come from attackers in midfield, and even midfield and defenders who come up to support an attack can bang the goals in. Understanding where the goals are going to come from is going to be key to building tactics. And if we can anticipate how we're going to score more goals, we can also anticipate how other people are going to try and score goals against us, and try and work out a defensive formation to take advantage of the strengths that we have in terms of speed, and eliminate some of the weaknesses in terms of our ability to jump and head the ball and compete physically for the ball, which might cause us problems. So this squad view tells us some interesting things. We're pretty thin on the ground in terms of people in certain positions. So in attacking midfield in the centre of the park here, we've only got 2 players who can operate there. One of whom is 3.5 stars, one of whom is 2 stars. These star ratings are current ability, and they relate to the division that we're in. You can see we're just looking at current ability. You can of course change that to look at potential ability as well. Right now we're cool. We've turned the field sideways, and now we're looking at position suitabilities, and it's colour coded. So where we've got 7 players to cover, we're blessed on the left hand side, particularly in wing back area. Although 1 great and 3 good is similar here, we've only got 1 average and 2 poor, and we've got a fair number of central midfielders, 5 great, which is good to hear, and 2 good as well. So a solid central pivot around which the rest of the team can rotate might be a good result. We've only got 2 goalkeepers, one of whom is great, but our backup is not too hot. And we might have limited numbers in defence, so when we come to think about recruiting to reinforce the squad, this view can give you a quick idea of how the players are lining up. But let's switch back to our vertical view, because what you'll find here is that the same player will appear more than once, and this is where a player is versatile and is trained to operate in more than one location. And so, oh, that's potential. Hang on, current ability. That's better. So we have an understanding of how we would build perhaps units gently out of this. So from our understanding as a team, and from an understanding of where we might have particular player strengths in the squad, we can have a look at tactics and see what we might do to develop our first tactic. At the moment, this is all theoretical. We haven't gone into any matches, even friendlies, because we haven't advanced time. But we need to have a tactic in order to play a match. You can't just chuck the players on the pitch with no instruction and tell them to get on with it. Although that might be interesting. Have a think about how to do that. So to assist players of Football Manager who don't particularly have a background in football, such as myself, Sports Interactive have created a set of tactical styles that are commonly observed throughout the leagues in world football. They vary in how positive or cautious they are, and in general this list goes from the most positive tactics at the top to the most defensive tactics at the bottom, with the sole exception of the control possession, which really ought to be placed below Tiki Taka, alongside vertical Tiki Taka, because Gegenpress and Tiki Taka are probably the most positive tactics in terms of mentality, default mentality that goes with it. Control possession, vertical Tiki Taka, and wing play are more balanced, so they have a foot in both offensive and defensive camps. Route 1 and the 2 counter-attack styles are more cautious, so they would suit a weaker team coming up against a stronger team, or perhaps for using when you are away from home and you don't have the kind of morale advantage of having a large number of fans to back you up. And the Catenaccio and the Park the Bus, pleasingly named Park the Bus, tactical style are specifically defensive, so they are there to prevent the opponent's scoring, but they won't actually give you much opportunity to score up front, because all of your resources are focused on protecting your own goal. You can, of course, just create your own style if you become skilled in understanding how these tactical styles work together. You can then, take the shackles off after your first save and start to play around with the tactics and come up with your own way of playing. What these are combinations of team instructions. So ignoring who specifically is going to be in each position, a tactical style tells the team as a whole to behave in a particular way. So, for example, I've been talking about the Tiki Taka tactical style. This is the style I'm probably going to select for Brackley as a first tactic. Tiki Taka was a way that was a phrase that described a style of play where players, instead of running with the ball and instead of dribbling and lifting the ball above the ground and kicking it long, it concentrated on smaller, shorter passing routines between triangles of players on the pitch, and moving the ball forward by tapping the ball to each other until you find a player who can link up with a triangle further up the pitch. So it's about gradual movement of the ball patiently up the pitch, a little bit at a time, using passing rather than picking up the ball and running with it, or just lumping the ball forward for somebody to run onto it. It's a patient style of play. It is very possession based, so it relies on people taking their time. And I think, on the whole, from what we've seen of the team shape and skills, it will place an emphasis on our off the ball and passing capability, and at times we'll look at using our pace and acceleration to allow a player to get into a scoring position so that a teammate can pass to them, and will generate our scoring opportunities that way. So that's the style idea, and a style will include things like a width, i.e. how far apart the players get laterally, either while they're attacking or while they're defending. It will include how high a defensive line you have. So what's the last line of defence? Where does it start? Is it high up the pitch to push a load of players into the opponent half, or is it very close to your own goal to prevent being counter-attacked? It will include passing style and length, and various other options, which we will explore piece by piece as we start looking at the tactic itself. Now, tactical style is independent of formation, and I think the formations themselves some of them suit tactical styles better than others. So we'll see that when we click on one of these tactical styles, the game will recommend one of a few formations. Formations are just the way that the players line up when they don't have the ball on the pitch. And the common nomenclature of a formation goes from defence, midfield and attack, and it's a sequence of numbers which tells you the number of people who are performing a particular function. So the sort of old-fashioned formation is called a 4-4-2, and that represents 4 people in defence, 4 people in midfield, 2 people in attack. There are different types of 4-4-2, and you will sometimes see additional letters or words written to distinguish between the different 4-4-2 formations. So 4-4-2, we know what that is. 4-3-3 DM is 4 in defence, 3 in midfield, 3 in attack. DM indicates that one of the midfielders is a defensive midfielder. So you can, after a while, look at these kind of numbers and be able to work out in your head what the formation would look like on the pitch. So let's make a start by clicking on Tiki Taka, and it gives you a nice breakdown of what the style involves and a tiny little graphic which shows in principle how it ought to work, how it ought to look on the pitch. So you'll see in this that the ball is rolled out short, so you're possessing the ball, you're keeping possession rather than punting it a long distance, and then players will create these triangles where they pass the ball in short simple movements until a player at the front can see sight of the goal, and then they look to shoot there. Out of possession, it involves a high defensive line. It also involves a high line of engagement. The line of engagement is the point at which your players begin to close down the opposition. In some football games, you will see the team drop back behind the middle line and just sit there waiting to be attacked, allowing the opponent to play the ball in their own half, but they'll meet stiff resistance when they cross that line. Now you can push that line all the way up to the top so that your strikers will hassle the goalkeeper and the defenders while they're in possession, disrupting their flow and stopping them from creating through balls into the midfield area. So you're trying to win the ball very high up the pitch and hopefully create mistakes in the enemy. The problem with doing that, and there are several challenges. One is energy, of course, because if your strikers are running around, if there's only 1 or 2 of them up here against 3 or 4 defenders, then they're going to have to do a lot of work. They will run out of energy very quickly, and once they've run 12 or 13 kilometres during the match, they might want a nice sit down. So that can be a problem. When you combine it with a very aggressive pressing style, you get almost more like a gegenpress, which is a very high intensity style. So Tiki Taka slows the tempo down. Usually it's a very patient build up, so it should be a little bit less impactful on the team's stamina. Gegenpress is probably more popular among senior teams higher up in the leagues who have the stamina and natural fitness and of course vast numbers of medical staff to be able to manage the athletic load on the individual players without causing injuries. There is another form of tiki-taka which is vertical tiki-taka. This suits narrow play where you kind of congest the central field, and it's a little bit more direct. So whereas this is a very patient style that relies a lot on short passing, vertical tiki-taka is a bit more up and down, where instead of triangles you're looking perhaps to miss out midfield and go for sort of higher up. So that might be worth something to have a think about moving to. But once you've chosen the tactical style, and you can go through and read up and watch the little dots going around to see if you like what you can see, you get to choose a formation. So you can see here that player roles that best suit Tiki Taka. It's recommended 3 different formations to us: 4-3-3 DM wide. So this is 4 defenders, 3 midfielders, 3 attackers. It has a defensive midfielder, and it's a wide play style. So this is the one we're looking at here, I think. Yeah, we've also got a 4-2-3-1. So you can see 4-2-3-1, which kind of creates a very clear distinction between the attacking formation, which is a 4-player formation, and a defensive formation, which is a 6-player formation. But it might be slightly less mobile than this one, because there's a big gap here. Or there's a formation like this, which has 3 attack-minded individuals. It's a bit more defensive, with more players in the defensive unit. So wing backs here rather than full backs mean that the wing backs will be expected to support what's going on at the front. So of these 3, these 2 have 3 players up top, which is very similar. This is good for narrower play. This is probably better for wide play, but from a weakness point of view, this one's probably got less protection down the flanks at the back, whereas this has the hole in the middle, which the opponent could exploit if we're not careful. There are hundreds of other potential formations, and it takes a fair amount of experimentation to figure out which one you might like, from the incredibly defensive 5-2-2-1, which I've never seen anybody use, or 5-4-1-0 with 2 defensive midfielders. But it's likely that this person up here is just not going to get a look in, because they just don't have enough support from other players on the pitch. To 3 defender formations, people have their own favourites, and it really depends a little bit on personal style. Many of them are as efficient or as effective as others, and within certain limits you can go crazy. So looking at these, we have some choices to make. Now, the reason why I'm umming and ahhing about these in the tiki-taka formation is that we've only got one person right in the box. And I know it said that we've got substandard crossing. We have a winger here, an inside forward who runs forward to join the attack. The advanced playmaker on attack will back up the attack. So we've got these 3 players attacking the ball, with this winger providing crossing and interference. This roaming playmaker here requires a player with a high degree of decision making and mobility in order to provide the support services that they need. And we have a second playmaker down here. Playmakers are players which the other players on the team look to get the ball to, because they're the visionaries and the creators. If you can find players with a lot of flair and passing, they are capable of cutting the defence apart with a raking pass or cross. They're the ones who make attacks happen. And normally, I think it's generally considered advisable to just have a single playmaker. But you can have a deep-lying playmaker, somebody in defensive midfield, and an attacking playmaker. In this case, we've got 3 playmakers in the middle of the park. 1 deep, 1 advanced, and 1 moves about. So this is quite a mobile play. If we've got the playing staff to do this, this might be quite good. I'm just worried we won't have the support up here. I usually like having 2 people in the box. But we are quite quick. Deep lying forward. We need a complete forward on this one. Complete forwards you need are really good for higher divisions, because we're not going to have a player who has all of the stats in all of the right places. We have deep lying forward here and here, with advanced playmakers, inside forwards, inverted wingers. I think before we decide on formation, we might want to have a quick look at our squad and work out where we're blessed with particular talent. So I find the selection info to be probably the best. Let's sort them by position, and it sorts them from the goalkeeper at the back of the park through defence into midfield, and then the attack-minded people at the bottom, which is quite handy. If we insert a column of best tactical role, what I want, scouted ability. Okay, so this tells us who our best players are. We have a number of 4s. Let's sort them by ability, just to give us an idea. So we have a superb central defender in Gareth Dean, a superb striker in terms of Lee and Levu, Lewis Lomas, again central defender, maybe defence left. Our attack-minded wingers, Matt Lowe and Wes York, can operate on both right and left sides. So we might look for a formation that could employ this, because I can't see here. Got another attacking midfielder here. We have very few people in the midfield left and midfield right. So let's just check our squad depth again. On the midfield left, we've got 4 players who can operate here, 2.5, 2.5, 1 and 1. I'm just going to rule these guys out because I'm not going to play a 1-star. So yeah, midfield left we are very light on. Whether we do have players that can support midfield right, we clearly have a stronger attacking midfield here. So with Lee and Levu at the front, and we've got a choice of 4 here, but we know that Jay Armson and Shepherd Murumbedzi's relationship is in the midfield, central midfield area. So Matt Lowe, Wes York in attacking midfield, Lee up front, Shepherd and James in midfield, and then we can choose how we sort out our defence. We've got Jay Richards, who could fill in defensive midfield, central midfield, or on the right. Ellis Miles was considered a good right back, it said. And again, we've got Shepherd being able to operate back here. In the centre of the park, probably Dean, Gareth Dean and Lewis Lomas. We don't have a lot of options over here. Again, Ellis Miles can swap flanks, but he's better on the right. Connor Franklin. can work on the left. But so Lewis Lomas is good across the whole of the back line. So let's have a look and see whether we can determine where he'd be most fitting. So he's accomplished on the left. He's a natural in the data center, prefers to be on the right side of the two-man pairing. And he's competent on the right. He's right-footed only, so strongly right-footed, which means if he's operating here on the left, he'd actually cut inside more often than stay outside. So I don't think he's a good fit for a person on the left over here, even though he's more accomplished on the left-hand side than he is at the right. But his dribbling and crossing skills are not very strong, so even if he is playing on the wing, we don't want him trying to cross the ball, dribble with the ball and cross it into the pitch. Rather, we'll probably be using him as central defence with Gareth Dean. So let's just quickly go back to Tiki Taka. And formations with 3 up front. So this might be interesting with James Armson sitting here, but there we're not using the relationship with Shepherd, and we've only got 2 players who can operate here. So perhaps to begin with, we won't do that. This involves wing backs on support, 3 playmakers. I'm not sure we've got the vision to support playmakers like this. Although we're asking them to pass short, so we'll be looking for killer through balls. Let's have a look how this would look. So if we confirm this as a tactic. Here we have our team members. Again, we can sort them by position. But in fact, let's sort by role. So they start with a sweeper keeper at the back. We probably don't have anyone who's very good at that. Our best is Danny Lewis. He's better as a goalkeeper, just a straightforward goalkeeper on defence, so we'll do that. Then we have our attackers. We're going to put Lee at the front. On the left, an inside forward who's going to be cutting in. So we've got Matlow, who is best as a winger on support. So he's probably better over here. Matlow, which will put Wes York over here. How are you? What footer? He's right only, which suits an inside forward. So rather than crossing with his left foot, he's going to be coming in and using his right foot there. So attack and support, let's have a look at who's most suitable here. I think James Armson will be, but Shepherd can as well. Okay. Shepherd's no good in this role. Okay, so we swap them round. So if we put Shepherd in here, can James play this role? No, we don't have anybody who's very good at this role. What the hell is this role? Roaming playmaker. Yeah, it's the one I thought we might have a problem with. Okay, let's leave that for the moment. Deep line playmaker. Do we have anybody who could fit in here? Jordan Richards can. And we have a backup in Alex Prosser. On the left. Don't really want to be putting Lois Lomas there. I want him in the centre. Alice Miles, good on the right. Ball playing defender. I don't think we're going to have anyone who can play with the ball. Actually, Lois is good though. And he likes being on the right hand side, so that's good. Gareth Dean on the left. Oops. So we have a challenge here that nobody's very good at wing back. So if we go to full back and talk about full back on support, is that better? Glenn Walker or Connor Franklin? Glenn Walker, it's clearly out of his wheelhouse because it's not even listed there. So I put Connor Franklin in for the moment. What is Franklin good at? What's his best role? His best role will be on pure defend. So we can do that. And then instead of a roaming playmaker, I get the feeling that James Armstrong is going to be better in this position because he's an AMC, he's an attacking midfielder in the centre, and this is a very attacking midfield position. Let's just check his defensive stats. Tackling 6, marking 5, positioning 7. So yeah, he's not a defensive player by nature. He's much better up front, either in attacking midfielder, shadow striker, or advanced playmaker. So I'm hoping that Shepherd here, and they've got that relationship between them signified by the green rainbow. I'm hoping you've got better defensive stats. Yeah, tackling 12, marking 10, positioning 11. Much better as a box-to-box or central midfielder. So these roles change the player behaviour. They're basically sets of instructions that the player adopts, which changes the way they move on the pitch, how they pass on the pitch within the limitations of the formation. Some of them had very odd names, coming from Italian football, for example, Carrilero, Shuttler, and it gives you an idea of what the role is meant for there. They move between the lines of midfield. Interesting. And he's a good Carrilero, but he's also effective at advanced play, box-to-box midfield, central defence. So when you select one of these, it lights up some of these stats. The ones in green are the critical stats for that role. So we find that Carrilero needs decent decision making, and that isn't one of Shepherd's strengths. He is better on the tactical side of things. The ones in blue are less important but are still relevant. So he has pretty good coverage there. Box-to-box midfield, for example. Yeah, is lacking aggression and finishing. He's definitely more defensive. And how does he look as a defensive central midfielder? Yeah, again, he's lacking aggression. So I think let's try him on Carrilero on support. He does have some weak points, composure and decisions. We might be able to boost that through training and development. One of the big problems with Shepherd as a player in midfield is his work rate, which here is only 7, and that the general rule is that you want your midfielders to be the engine of the team, and with 7 work rate, he might not work hard enough to justify that. Can he play in defensive midfield? He can, competently. Again, lack of aggression, but that's sort of the one. Still got problems with composure and work rate. Was Richards better? Let's have a look. Solid defensive stats, better decision maker, a little bit more aggressive, not very strong. He's a natural here. Segundo Volante. He's like a deep line playmaker, but their role's primarily defensive. They often run with the ball. Well, he's got dribbling 6, so that might not be a good idea. Or he's a decent defensive midfielder. They often run with the ball. Dribbling 6 is not going to do it for me there, I'm afraid, even though it says you're 3 and a bit stars. Deep lying playmaker. Let's go defensive midfielder on defence. Right. So we've kind of assembled our team in a formation that we think is going to be good for them. We're using a Tiki Taka style, positive mentality. And what I'm anticipating seeing is that these players... So Armson's going to advance up the pitch with his attack mentality. He's going to move at least a couple of squares up. York on support similarly will come in, and we'll end up with 3 players, York and Louvu and Armson at the front. Lowe will stick to the line as a winger in support. His crossing's not bad, so we can at least bang some balls in. He's quite quick, that's his big benefit, which is groovy. Is York similarly quick? Yeah, this is where a lot of our pace comes in compared to the rest of the division. He's good. He's very good at dribbling with the ball, so we're going to want him to run with the ball. But it says he's a better winger. So maybe we want him, instead of being an inside forward, being an inverted winger and support instead. So the inverted winger will still stick to the line, but he'll cut back onto his right foot to create the crossing or passing opportunities. Yeah, I'm not going to have you roaming. That doesn't play to your strengths at all. But we need you in a more of a defensive mode. Central midfield on defend. Asking him to hold position. Or just sticking him on automatic and allowing him to decide. But his decision making isn't that brilliant. Box to box to support. It's a more general rule. Now, how do I know whether this is going to work or not? Well, one tool that it provides you with is this analysis. Once you've dropped your players into position, you can click on here and you get a heat map. Now in here, bright green means several players are have an influence over that area of the pitch and can strongly affect it. So you can see with the bright green where you're going to be strongest on the pitch, and boxes in oranges and red mean that there aren't going to be as many players around here challenging for the ball, or you've got weak influence here. Now you can click on each of these squares and it will give you a breakdown of what's going on. So Wes York can help out here. Shepherd is responsible for that area of the pitch and is a good choice for it, but he's considerably ill-suited to his box-to-box midfielder role, even though it says that he's got a high star rating in that. I suspect his work rate is going to create a problem there, and Jordan Richards has an influence over this line as well. He's poorly suited to his role and duty. That is very interesting. So if we have another look, if we change him to central midfielder on defend, which he is seemingly eminently suitable for, and we do the analysis again, he stops being responsible for that, but at least the game feels that he's able to help out in this area from time to time, which is a bit of a surprise because he's right there. So it's clear that this picture, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt and actually review what's going on the pitch. Now, I don't like the fact that we're not actually creating a lot of overload up here, a lot of pressure. You know, we've got these guys as wingers, but Lee is up there very on his own, and that could cause us a problem. He's well suited to his role and duty, but he lacks support from the rest of the team. So we're going to be tinkering with this to see if we can work out this heat map and get ourselves a bit happier. So let me play with this for a bit. Maybe changing the formation, changing the players and the roles that they're performing, and I'll bring you back when I'm done. Welcome back. This is what I've come up with after a bit of tinkering. What I've done, I've taken the defensive midfielder out of the formation and pushed them up top. And in this case, I've put in Bradley Rolt, who is our young 3-star high potential striker to support Lee and Luvu. Now the thing about Bradley is that he's 5'5" with no jumping reach, so he's a tiny, lightweight but incredibly fast forward with superior finishing, good first touch. Okay, he's a daydreamer as well. He's low concentration, but he works really, really hard, and you know, semi-decent anticipation. So we can expect, I think, good things from Bradley, combined with Lee, who is 5'10" with a good jumping reach, reasonable heading, but neither of these guys are going to dominate in the air. They're off the ball, their combined work rate and teamwork. I get the feeling that these two as pressing forwards, Lee with 10 tackling and decent work rate and reasonable speed, and Bradley as well. His tackling leaves a lot to be desired, but his additional speed and his work rate, I think combined they can hassle and harry the opponent's 13 stamina. Should give him enough to do that for the whole match. Maybe Lee will struggle a little bit in the later stages, but with these two as our forward threat, I've just stepped them off a little bit, so Lee is in support mode more than Bradley here, and they're going to be supported by wingers York and Lowe, inverted winger here for York because of his footedness. So he's going to be moving up the left and cutting back and then crossing into these guys. Matt Lowe is going to be moving up the right and bringing crosses in. But I'm going to be asking them to do low crosses in because we're not going to win the ball. Armson I've set as an advanced playmaker on attack, so he's going to be making runs through the middle. He is a creative player with reasonably high flair and passing. He's decent at long shots and finishing, so he can provide a serious attacking threat. His tackling and marking are nothing to write home about really, but he can dribble, he can cross, he's a good all-rounder. And seeing him in this attack role I think will prove great benefit. His connection with Shepherd, I've put Shepherd in the Carrilero role, which means he's going to hang back and link the defenders to the attackers, hopefully providing good defensive cover here. When Armson pushes forward to attack, he'll probably drop in behind because he understands the way that Armson is going to play, and his superior defensive statistics can come into play. I've dropped Richards to the right rather than Elliott. If we have a look at this chap, he's fast enough to operate on the outside of the defence, running up and down the line with decent stamina, or at least reasonable stamina, and he works reasonably hard. His defensive stats aren't too bad. He can mark, he's got decent position and tackling. Anticipation is fine. He can cross a bit as well. So in his role supporting the attack, he can move up the wing and maybe push crosses in from the deep to James Armson or one of the wingers. We can rely on him to do that job. So I've put him on fullback, but on automatic. So he will change his mentality from his position from defensive to support to attack, depending on what else is going on the field. Connor Franklin, however, is a little bit older. His physical stats are not as good, and although his raw defensive stats are adequate, he's not tall enough to compete in the air, and he doesn't have superior crossing and dribbling. Now the thing about Connor Franklin is that what he lacks maybe in attributes, he makes up for in player traits. So he does run with the ball down the left. He tries killer balls often. He's got flair 11 and passing 9. He might be okay at that. He's good at marking tightly, and he's got the only set-piece weapon in our armoury, I think, which is that he possesses a long flat throw, and his long throws is 14. So when we come to set up our set-piece tactics, he's going to be our thrower inner of choice. But he's not very quick, so we want to make sure he doesn't find himself out of position by asking him to take throw-ins on the right-hand side. We'll just get him to take throw-ins on the left-hand side. That's fine. From the defensive point of view, I think the Dean Lomas pairing in the middle is it's a no-brainer. I've set Dean as a pure defensive central defender. Lomas I've got as a ball-playing defender. If we have a look at his stats, he's got reasonable technique. His passing is a 10. He's not necessarily a flair player, so we're not looking for him to cut the defence open with a raking ball. But then if we're playing Tiki Taka, that's not what we're asking him to do. We're asking him to take smaller passing steps. He can sort of dribble with the ball, and he has reasonable mental and physical stats. He's quite pacey as well at the back. So I feel relatively comfortable giving him the ability to support the attack by running forward a little bit more, which creates the one weak point in this, in that if you give the central defender here license to move forward and the fullback license to move forward, you end up with a gap at the back. If we have a look at the analysis, we can see these two squares here. There's nobody directly responsible for them, although our coverage there is good and consistent, and it could be that we are happy with that. The other two squares of concern are here. There's nobody responsible, however. Shepherd is able to help out from time to time, and James Armson will be there if he's not attacking. And here is particularly weak because Shepherd won't necessarily move all the way to the right hand side, and we're going to have to rely on James Armson using his pace to get back into position. So from a defensive point of view, we've got very strong protection in front of the 18-yard box, or the goal area. Very strong with the goalkeeper. Really our only weakness is on the right hand side, and it's not a massive weakness. It's not deep red here with warning signs, so we should be comfortable there. But the benefit of doing it this way is that we are starting to generate some real goal scoring threat up here. So our abilities in here, we can see that the fullback is going to be providing pressure in here. James Armson, because he's in attack mode, will sometimes end up in that location. Bradley Rolt as a pressing attacker may well be moving into that area, and of course you've got Matlow there, the winger himself. So because Matlow on this side, supported by James Armson, the attack-minded Bradley Wild is really fast, and Jordan Richards, the right-hand side looks like more fertile ground for us in terms of attack. So we could ask the team in this particular formation with these particular players to focus on the right-hand side when we're distributing the ball. And because we've got a slightly older and less mobile defender on the left, we can leave everybody on this side providing more defensive duties, more support duties, or acting as the targets for cross-ball play. And we'll have to have a think about whether we want to move people further in to take advantage of that asymmetric style of play. So that's the formation I came up with. Those are the player roles, with pressing forwards at the front to take advantage of their speed, their work rate, and not necessarily their tackling. The wingers and inverted wingers on support duties, because that's their key strengths. This experienced partnership in the middle, one more defensive, one more attacking, should give us 5 in defence and 5 in attack, which is a relatively balanced play, but with an emphasis on the right hand side for attack and left hand side more for defence. But if we have a look at this, the intensity is okay. It's about 2/3 of the way along. It's not really going to burn out the players. The familiarity though is quite low, and if we have a look at the breakdown of that, the players in Brackley Town at the moment are acknowledging that they haven't been trained on this tactic, but they're accomplished at the positive mentality, so looks like the teams are going to be very happy with that, and with the creative freedom that the structure affords them. However, the passing style, the triggering press, the marking, the tempo, and their various fits, the role duties that they are afforded, all awkward. Now we might want to just make a quick tinker to the Tiki Taka style in these 3 phases of play. While we have the ball, when we are transitioning between having the ball and not having the ball, and what we do when we don't have the ball, to make the team as it stands today more comfortable with the tactics. So if we have a look at what we do while we have the ball in this style, first of all, our attacking width is fairly narrow. We can make it wider. We have 2 wingers here whose role it is to go far out on the left and the right, and a number of teams will squeeze their defence in to the middle, trying to pack the park in the middle, which means we might well get some good success going around the outside. As a team, we don't perhaps excel in crossing the ball, and so I'm not too worried about this attacking width. But if you remember, looking at the familiarity, the width we are competent in. If I go into this and make the attacking width a bit wider, and then go back and have a look at the intensity, the familiarity, you can see the width is now accomplished. So Brackley Town players are more comfortable playing with a wider in attack, and I think that will make the most of our attacking wingers on the left and right. We can play around with that as we see whether we get good success or not. It should give us a bit more space opening up here. Now, we've already discussed that the lack of anticipation among our players means that passing into space is probably not a good idea. We've also discussed that playing out of defence is all very well, but actually we might want to focus our attacks down the right hand side. which we're fine with. Now with Jordan Richards running down the right hand side, we might want to give specific instructions to wait for either James Armisen or Richards to... No, I don't think we're going to be able to hold up the ball very well. Brackley Town as a team are not strong or brave, and they might well be able to be pushed off the ball unless we get the attack done quickly. So specifically holding up play is probably counter to what we're looking for. Our passing directness is minimum distance. This is not going to take advantage of the fact that our passing skill is actually quite good as a team. So what I'm going to do is just bumping up one step. I'm also going to bump up the tempo one step to give us a little bit more impetus. And if we look at how that has affected our familiarity, right, so passing style is now competent, mentality accomplished, creative freedom accomplished, competent at the tempo, accomplished at the width. We're becoming better at our fit with this tactic even before we've started training on it. So we'll have a look at our trigger press and our marking. We'll just finish off this stuff. Time wasting never. We can use time wasting as a way of conserving energy. If we're 2 or 3 goals to the good, we might just jump that on and waste a bit of time. In the final third, we'll cross low into the box. Initially, we work the ball into the box, accepting that we're not very good at long shots, and probably getting it into Bradley and Lee will be fantastic. We have no set piece takers for corners or free kicks, so we're not going to play for set pieces. If we hire somebody who has good free kicks, good corner taking, then we'll switch that on. Because it's a tiki-taka style, when a player gets the ball, they're going to have a decision to make. Do I run with the ball? Do I pass the ball? Really? And here we want the player to be passing the ball more and running with the ball less. So as a team, this is kind of the team instruction to make it a tiki-taka style. There are going to be players here who are actually quite good at dribbling. We might need to override the team instruction with an individual instruction to allow them to run with the ball. It says the team is happy with the creative freedom. If I ask them to be more expressive, I wonder what that will do to their familiarity with the creative freedom. It makes it awkward. So instead of doing that, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it standard. If I make it more disciplined, will they be happier with that? Competent. Okay. So, whoops. Give me the tactic back. There we go. So actually, I'm happy to leave that not explicitly one way or the other. We can, of course, set up in our match plan to become more disciplined if we concede a goal early, or we can become more expressive if we are several goals up later on. So let's just look at the transition plays in a tiki-taka style. This has the instruction to press if we lose the ball. This will suit our style relatively well because we use our pace to close down the gap with the opponent. We don't have great tackling stats, so we won't necessarily tackle them and get the ball, but we'll close down their options and cause them to have to make decisions which they may get wrong. And we hold our shape when we win the ball. So we slow the play down. We don't launch on the counter-attack. Now we might decide that because of the pace that our front players have and our wingers have, that we might want to adopt a counter style rather than holding the shape. So if we do this, it increases the intensity quite considerably. without impacting the familiarity. But I think that is going to suit our team style better, because we are faster on our feet. We might be able to hit teams on the break. In order to support that, and with the fact that our goalkeeper is excellent at distributing the ball, both throwing and kicking, we want him to distribute it quickly. We could distribute it to James Armson as the playmaker, or distribute to the flanks. And I think given we have great attacking midfielders in Matt Lowe and Wes York, then I don't care whether the keeper is going to throw it or take short or long kicks. We will push things out to the side. The wingers will take it in, and I don't think I can have both. No. I don't want to distribute over the offence, because although we're quick, we lack certain anticipation. I'm thinking now Brackley roll up front in a pressing attacking role might run onto the ball. We've got the kicking in the keeper, and that might be a way of getting extra goals. I think I'll leave that until later on in the game. If we're one down in the second half, we might want to start pushing the keeper to just kick it over the defence if they're keeping a high line, and let Brackley roll and Lee and Lavu to run onto it. So out of possession, this Tiki Taka style presses hard, so we trigger press much more often, which might be good for us, but it does say that the familiarity with that is not good. I'm not going to tell them to get stuck in, because our tackling is awful and we're not very strong or brave, so we'll keep this neutral. We could use tighter marking. So the familiarity on the marking is awkward. But we have got accomplished, competent, accomplished. So the trigger press is going to have to come down one. Sorry. So trigger press to come down one. And do tight marking. And see how that responds. Marking is still awkward. Trigger press is even more awkward. Okay. I keep touching the wrong buttons. So this defensive line, on the one hand we have fast players, and holding a higher defensive line, it shouldn't be a problem for us. On the downside, our keeper is not good at 1v1s, and if they go route one and start kicking the ball over our defensive line, we could be way exposed. So I'm going to actually bring this down to standard. However, I'm going to maintain a higher level of line of engagement. I want my strikers to be using the best of their work rate and speed to close down the enemy. Because I'm using standard defensive line, but our teamwork is not particularly strong, I do not want to try and catch people offside, because we could end up out of position, so I'm going to turn that off. And how will that affect familiarity? Right. Not too bad. So the things that we've got to think about our marking strategy. Where is that marking at the moment? It's about a quarter of the way up. If I take the marking off and have a look, about the same. maybe we'll have a think about that. But right now, I think that's reasonable. We know where we've got some weak spots. We know where we're strong, and we've got a reasonable balance of defence on the left. So now I've tweaked the roles. Now I've done the basic analysis. I can pick my top, my first 11, get the substitutes in place, and start working out training to bring people up to speed with the tactic. We'll also have a think about the fact that we can have 3 tactics here, so we might want to create some variations of this to adopt under certain conditions. So we might want a counter-attacking one where we switch from this is quite a positive attack-minded formation with tactical instructions to suit. We might want something that's lower intensity, sits back and strikes on the counter-attack. So we can switch to it either when we're well ahead or when we're feeling, in the mood for a bit of caution, because we're facing a much stronger team who are likely to come at us. And if we can hit them on the break, then that's going to be good news. But we'll try and keep this formation anyway, because I think it suits Brackley's play style. We've got some nice triangles and strong central partnership here, with a balance of attack and defence-minded attitudes. And we've just got to make sure when we're actually playing the game that it gives us the movement on the pitch that we're anticipating. And there'll be a bit of tweaking and refinement to go, but if we look at our star ratings, we've got good suitability across the board. Maybe a question over Connor Franklin. We might want to be in the market for a new left defender, preferably one with strong set pieces. Bradley Roltz is a youngster, but he's at 3-star, which is already good enough to take a first team role. But we haven't really looked at our backups and fringe players and the people at the bottom. We'll have a look through there, because we might next time want to have a look about making changes to the playing staff in terms of who's listed for loan, who's listed for sale, who's waiting for a new contract, and try and manage our prospective wage bill. Anyway, I hope that sort of introduction to tactics and how that all works out was of interest to you. We'll probably talk more about tactics later on. There's more depth that you can get into about how these things work on the pitch, but I think just to begin with, getting something down that's pretty close to one of the recommended formations and styles, and that suits the team that we have in terms of quality players, is going to put us in a good position. So I'm quite happy with that. Thanks anyway for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Take care. Bye.
I fought with lions and wolves, but I've never fought myself before. It's over everything I've ever